Make sure to always torque your bolts.
Welcome to Tartaglia's Rod Shop. Enjoy the ride. Well, good afternoon, YouTubers, and if you're celebrating Hanukkah, Happy Hanukkah, and if you're celebrating Christmas, Merry Christmas, because it's a couple days away.
Two to be exact.
Yeah, 2 days away. It is Friday. Just to let you know, I've just been busy with work, so we couldn't really do too many videos. We're trying to get more videos out, but with work schedule and Ricky Squints' school schedule, it's been kind of tough. So
We got school.
what do we got going on? Squints, show them.
Also, Project Turf.
So Project Dave
We
is
got.
in the garage.
We're gonna start putting it together.
So we got the blocks all cleaned. It came back from the machine shop. It's in great shape. I'm amazed at how
Yeah, see?
it's just awesome.
Look at it.
So we did a nice wipe down on everything. Made sure everything's clean. I just got to do a quick blow off on it once we're ready to start putting parts in. I like to lay everything out on a table, and then I want to do. I want to start checking bearing clearances. And the way I was always taught, I'm going to show you guys. That's how I was taught. So that's how we're going to do it. If you look, we have. This is an Eagle rotating assembly. This is your Eagle cast crank. So it is a cast crank. It is not a forged crank. It is your. If you look at the numbers. It is the Eagle 350 cast for C, but they use a much better metal content, so it has a very good high nickel content when they do the casting, so it is a lot stronger than your factory crank, and it's manufactured a lot better because of technology advances. So what I like to do is I like to measure journals first, and what I did was I took my 2 to 3 micrometer, and I simply do each main journal, and I try to get an average, but they all ended up being 24485. So if nobody understands what that means, that's inches. So it's 2
inches.
Yep, it's 2.4485. So that's you're going 4 spots. That's if I get this right. So that's 4/10. It's 448.5 tenths. So that's how I guess you would say it. There's different ways of saying it. Everybody has a different way to say it. But so you don't have to go that far, but it's nice because then it gives you more exact numbers. So that's your main journal is a 24485. The rod journals are 2100, which is 2.1 inches, and they were all the same. So what I do then is I actually will put the main bearings in, and I'll measure each one. I'll set up my dial bore gauge to the 2.4485. And then I go into the bore with the bearing installed, and I check it and see what the difference is. So that's going to give me my oil clearance. That's the way I was taught to do it. There's other ways of doing it. You can measure the bearing thickness. You can measure the journal based on the bearing. The problem is if you don't have it installed, your tunnel, when they do a line bore, could be slightly larger than factory. So if they just did a quick clean on the line bore, that's going to cause the bearing to spread out a little bit more, which could cause a larger clearance. So even if you measure the bearing and the journal and then do the math, that might not be accurate. So I was always taught, I could be wrong, to put them into the motor and just do a quick check on them. It takes literally 10 minutes to do. So I'm going to show you. So, oh, and by the way, we've brought back the...
Make sure you always torque your bolts.
Oh, man. He wanted to wear his fake mustache. Or should I say it's a tape mustache goatee. Yes, that is made out of tape. Yes. So, all right. So what we're going to do, we take our caps. I already cleaned them all.
I did. You didn't.
So we're going to do our rear cap first. So what we do is the bearings are a King brand. They come with the kit. and they are standard size. You can see it says STD, standard. If they were undersized or oversized, it would say 010, 020, or 030. That's based on the journal of the crank. Your groove side with the oil hole is always towards the block. These are only a half groove, not a full. So if they were full groove performance race bearings, they would have the full groove all the way around. The problem with that is sometimes you lose a little on the oil pressure side because it takes a lot more area to fill before the oil hits. So I don't really like to use those on a motor like this. So that's why I only use the half grooves. So what we do here is take these.
Yes, I mean.
We got my little mallet.
Mallet. To hammer.
The other thing, just a rubber mallet. The other thing too is, where's my screwdriver?
Screwy-driver.
So, pocket screwdriver. So I'm going to show you a little trick. So everybody's going to be like, well, how do you get the bearing back out? So you never want to pry on an actual bearing because you could damage the bearing itself or the your thrust. This is the thrust side of the bearing, is each side here. So a quick way to remove a bearing is you take a pocket screwdriver and you just pop it. And it pops it out. Oops. Well, it should pop it out. These are tight.
Don't.
There it goes. So you get the idea.
Yeah, idea.
So that's that one. And these are all the same, so we just pop them in. Make sure the notch goes to the notch.
Can I hold?
If you want to take these bearings out, you just roll them.
Oh, that's cool.
And they pop out. So your rear main, your rear main cap bearings are always much harder to get in and out. So as you can see, the holes line up with the oil holes. And that's why this bearing goes towards the block. That's how it feeds the oil pressure. So we're going to check number 5 first, which is your largest bearing. Usually on these, they have, sometimes have less clearance than the others because they're a much larger bearing.
Can you hold this for a second?
Sure. You can just shut it off. Alright, so I got assembly lube.
What? Where did you get that from?
I've had this. It's actually, I forget the company that makes it, but it's real similar to like the Lucas. And then just some regular engine oil. So whenever I put a cap on with cap bolts or any kind of bolts, you just want to lubricate the threads. That way you get a proper torque. They do make assembly lube, which works really good, which is your ARP Ultra Torque. I'll be using that once we're installing for good. But for right now, I'm simply just doing a little bit of motor oil on the threads of each of my main caps. So that way they just torque down properly. And I like to put a piece of cardboard down, some towels. That way you're not making a mess. I just like to keep things organized. We're also going to be putting the piston rings on the pistons. I'll show you guys. It's a real simple process. It's not that hard. So. All right, so.
That's self-explanatory. So
Yes.
which way it goes on.
So what you do is you start the bolts. The key is you got to start the bolts. You don't want to just start torquing it down. And by the way, these are low lint rags. You want to try to keep as little lint as possible. So what you do is you start the threads, then you hold the cap. Make sure it's bottoming out, which that one is not. So we have to. There it goes. See how it's now flush? See how it's flush and flush? So now you can actually torque it down. I always do a partial torque. I don't want to do a full torque on it.
Flush right there.
It will be. Because you don't want to break your cap. So it's 5/8.
Oh, I love that.
So I think on the mains, I gotta look it up, but I think it's 65 or 75, I forget. So what I do is I just spin them down. Nothing crazy. And then you want to just torque them. You want to do a multi-step torque.
What do you mean multi-step?
So you don't want to just torque it right to 65 foot-pounds. Or 75. I gotta look it up real quick. Hold on. I haven't built a small block in a long time.
Go.
Alright, so I looked up the torque specs and I was right. It's 65 on your inners. I think, right? 65? Yeah.
Yeah, 60 and 70 on the
your,
inners.
On your outers.
What are outers?
The outer bolts, because it's a 4-bolt main cap. Let's go to foot-pounds. So this is a digital. This is nice because it does...
That one you had
It does
for
a lot
while.
of different, yeah. So I'm just going to do a 40 foot-pound.
Could I try?
Yeah, let me do it first, though, okay?
Seems easy for you.
And then I'm going to go 65. It's not a big deal. Some people say 25, 45, 65, but you can go 40 and then you can go to 65. As long as you do it evenly and it sits properly and the cap is sitting, then you're okay. All right, so the reason I torque it is because it gives the bearing what they call crush. It's the proper bearing crush. And what that is the bearing actually spreads while it's getting torqued down. So that bearing, those two pieces of bearing, upper and lower, as it gets torqued down, they actually spread like that. It's called crush. That places the bearing so it can't spin. So now I can come in here and I can measure between here and here with my dial bore once I set it up.
Oh, that's the dial bore thing over
It's
there.
over here.
Yes.
So we know that our journal is 2.4485. So that is, on your micrometer, is 2.448, if you know how to read, and 5. I forget what it's called, but it's like 5 10/100ths or something. I don't know, I forget what they call it. It's basically the fourth spot in the... I could go 2.448 and it would be fine, but I'm just a weirdo, I guess. I have OCD.
You do?
Yeah. When it comes to measuring, yes. So you just got to set up your bore gauge.
What is that?
It's a dial bore gauge.
How do you use it?
I'm going to show you. You have different extensions. So we take this off. And we need 2.44, so we come over here. And we need, let's go to the 2.4. So that's 2.4, and we'll go with a 4,000 shim.
What the?
That should be enough for the distance we need, because we want it to fit.
See, look.
We want it to fit inside our micrometer, which it is a little loose, but it's actually pretty good.
So is that good?
Yeah, it's a little loose. I gotta add another shim. Ooh, it's getting windy out.
Yeah, it is.
Oh boy. Hopefully we don't lose power. Are you filming?
Yeah.
So I want to set this up so I can come inside the bearing like this, and I can read my gauge. So I want to move my gauge.
I didn't know you could move that.
And I want to make sure I have enough preload on there, which is good. So then I come in here. Let me loosen this, because I got to zero it. So this is the fun part. So you come in here like this.
Yes.
You could put it in a vise too. You know what? I'll show you in a vise. Makes it a lot easier.
Go to the vicey vice. Vicey vice.
So what I do is I just stick this in the vise real quick.
Yeah, we found that vice in our basement.
And then I come in here. I get it in between the mic. and I find where, and I move and I zero it out. And then I lock it where it zeros. So I want to show, come over here, I want you to show them this again. So watch the gauge. So as I go in, so a dial bore gauge only gives you differences. You have to set the distance. As I go into my micrometer and I move it, you'll see the gauge. Oh, I got to reset it because I messed up. You'll see the gauge stop. Crap, hold on. It's moving on me. You're in my way, that's the problem. So
I'll just do it from here.
what's going on here? Is this thing tight? See how it goes to 0 and then comes back? And then goes to 0 and then comes back. So where it stalls is your exact measurement.
So it's 0.
Right? Which is 0 right there. This is not the best dial bore gauge. It's cheapy.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, but it works. There it goes. So 0 is your measurement. So 0 is 2.4485. So that's how we know. Now here, look at this. Ready? So let's say I'm at 0. If the bore is larger than that size, it would go to the left. If the bore is smaller, it would go to the right. So that's how you know. So when I put it inside, you'll see it'll probably level off around 2 to 25, which is 2.5 thousandths difference. Let's try it. So when we come in here, but on the other side, all right, I want you to look straight down on the camera. So I'm going to put it inside the bearing, nice and easy. All right, so now look at the gauge. Hold on, I gotta get it just right. No, oh, that's wrong. It moved. Shut that off, man. All right, so I wanted to double check. So we actually shut the camera off because I wanted to double check everything. The micrometer is set to the journal. It's 24485. Some people will say it's 245 or 25, but it's not. It's actually 24485. So I set the dial bore. I put in my rear main, and I'll show you what I'm getting for a reading if Ricky wants to show the gauge, which this is where we're running into a problem. So if you watch where it settles right there, and then it comes back, and then right there, and it comes back. So right there, that's one. Here, I'll show you with my screwdriver. Hold on, if I can find it. So each large line is 1/1000th of an inch. 1, 2, 3, 4 thousandths oil clearance. Now you're probably saying, uh-oh, not good if you understand motors. So that is not good. 4 thousandths on a rear main. Rear main, I'd like to see around 2.5. So I could see it being 3, but right now we're at 4 thousandths. That's way, it comes right off. That's way too much. So that's a problem. So remember, this was line board. This is why we check them like this. So now I come in here and I do my number 4 cap because I want to see what the regular main caps are at. I torque the bolts, put the bearings in there. If you watch the gauge, it settles at 3.5. Right there. So right there. This gauge isn't perfect, but it's good. So that's 3.5 thousandths. 0.0035. That's too much. I want that to be 2 to 2.5, and I want my rear main to be 2.5. So that tells me so far I'm going to have to get a different set of bearings. They're going to have to be an oversized bearing, which would be a 1.5 thousandths oversize. Because if you do the math, to do 1.5 thousandths oversize, it would give me a 2 thousandths oil clearance. If I did a 1.5 oversize here, it would give me a 2.5 thousandths, which is what I want for the rear because it's a larger bearing. So I'm going to check the next set of caps just to see. And if they all come out the same, then we're going to have to stop and we're going to have to order a set of oversized bearings because these are all standard, just to make sure. And when I mean oversized is they're slightly fatter, a little bit
Fatter?
Yes, a little bit larger. Sometimes it happens, but this is why you have to check. Because you could use Plastigauge, and the Plastigauge is never accurate. So you're going to end up having a problem, and your motor's going to have way too much oil clearance. So you'll have very bad oil pressure. That's not good. This is why you have to do this. This is why I was taught. Remember, these are 65 and 70, but I'm starting at 40, and I always work my way from the inside out.
But he just did 65 and 65.
Yeah, I'm just for right now for measuring purposes. I'm just doing 65. So I do the inner bolts first. I just snug them down a little bit. I do 40, and then I do the outers. And then I go to 65. Because this isn't really a final, it's just for measurement purposes.
Yeah. This isn't going to be like permanent.
So I'm also going to check, once we check these, I'm going to check the rods. Because I want to see if the rod bearings are going to be good. Which they technically should be. Because these rods are brand new, the bearings are brand new, and the crank is brand new, so it should be perfect. This block was worn out, so they had to line bore it a little. That causes a little bit more of a gap, so that's why. So we weren't sure when we did the machining. He said that he only just touched it, but anything's possible. It needed a little more than normal, but I've done this before.
Yeah, it's the same.
Yep. See? So they're all going to be the same. So it's 3.5 thousandths. So yeah, I know. I don't have to mark it, but I do. I want to. So right now we're 3.5. So if this was like a full-on race motor, I might be okay with that. I would run a high volume, high pressure pump, and I'd run a large amount of oil pressure to compensate. But
I thought this is.
that's also something where you would have restrictors on the top of the motor, all kinds of racing setups. This is a street motor. I want 2 thousandths on the mains, 2.5 on the back, and my rods I want around 2 thousandths. So. Squints keeps asking, he wants to try, but this is kind of, I just want to make sure that.
I'd love to try.
Well, I just want to make sure the measuring part is
Difficult.
kind of have to understand it. So
I
he'll get his chance. So, I don't know if anybody knows this, but I actually used to teach at Universal Technical Institute out in Rancho, California. And then I transferred here to campus in New Jersey for a little while. And the class that I taught was Power and Performance.
What's that?
Which was the machining, rebuilding, basically it's the complete rebuild of a small block Chevy.
And this is a small
This is a small block Chevy. So this is what I used to teach. We used to teach micrometer, dial bore gauge use, speccing the whole motor. I mean, we would go above and beyond with checking all specs. But there's a reason that you want to check. You don't want to just throw stuff together based on...
Above and beyond.
Well, because the machine shop Okay, Ricky. Seriously. But the machine shop, they do their job based off of parts you give them, and that's all great and grand. But the problem is something like this, where you have older components, you could have a problem with clearances. You don't just throw it together. I mean, this would run, it just wouldn't last. So that's the problem. You want to make sure that it lasts. This is what's important, and this is what takes forever.
Yeah, it's the same.
It's a little bit tighter.
Oh, yeah. It's actually...
So that one's 3,000s.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm okay with that.
No, it's 3,000.
That one's 3,000s. So we may end up buying 2 sets of bearings because I want a certain spec.
3,000.
I might buy, because now I'm at a point where I could do 2.5. So if we did a 1,000th bearing oversize, that would be 2,000s, 2.5, 2.5, and 3. But 3's a lot. It's just too big on the back. I don't want 3,000s. That's too much.
Very.
So I think I might have to buy 2 sets of bearings so I can mix them. It's gonna be weird.
That's weird.
That stinks. We'll see. Because I don't want a tight bearing.
What's a tight?
Well, it would have too little clearance. I don't want that.
I'm a professional. I'm a professional filmer. With a phone. I'm a professional filmer.
Squints is the best cameraman I got.
With a phone.
Because you're the only one I got.
Yeah. Make sure you always torque your bolts.
Yep, that's right.
Make sure you always torque your bolts.
Where do you come up with that voice? Make sure you sound like from the Wizard of Oz, the little Munchkin guys. What are they
Make
called?
sure you always torque your bolts. Goblins.
We represent the Lollipop Gang. The Lollipop Gang.
Lollipop King.
Yeah, see, that one's 3,000s. So the 2 fronts are 3,000s.
Lollipop King.
So, I'm gonna... What do we do then? What do we do? So, I really don't want 1.5 thousandths. 2.5's fine.
What is this
So
one?
basically the rule of thumb, so here's how you look at it. The rule of thumb is you want 1,000ths of an inch clearance per 1 inch of bore. So if these are technically 2.5 inches of bore, you would want 2.5 thousandths clearance. If roughly anywhere around there. I have 3 thousandths on the fronts, and I got 3.5. So I got 3, 3, 3.5, 3.5, and 4.
Oh.
I don't know why that rear one's so big, man. That stinks.
So that's 4 inches?
No, 4 thousandths of an inch. Yeah, 4 inches would be.
So it's like a millimeter.
No, it's 4 thousandths.
4 millimeters.
So I got to figure out how we're going to get.
So it's 4 millimeters.
Because the front 2 are actually not bad at 3 thousandths. It's not horrible. It's a little on the heavy side. Why are you so close, dude? Come on. Stop, will you please?
I'm the professional.
No. Doing close-ups. Close up. No, stop. Stop. Seriously, stop, please. So I got to figure out what we're going to do because I really don't want. So if we do the math, so here, look at this way. So if I do a 1,000th oversized bearing, that drops this to a 2.5, which is ideal. It puts the front ones at 2, which is okay. It still works.
Woohoo.
2.5, 2.5. This would be at 2.5. And then your rear would be at 3, which is fine for a rear main because it is a much larger surface. So I think that's what we'll do. I'm gonna call my machine shop and ask him what he thinks, but I think 2 thousandths will be fine on the fronts. It'll be all right. So yeah, we're gonna have to buy some oversized bearings, so we'll go from there. But let me just check one of the rod bearings. We'll do a rod spec. These are all the same, so I'm not too worried about rod bearings. All right, so we're just going to check one of the rods because they're all the same. They're all brand new. Crank's brand new. So I set it to the journal. The journals are 2.1 even. And then I set this so that it zeroes out. So when I'm on 0, it's at 2.1 inches. If it's larger bore, it always goes counterclockwise. Smaller bore, clockwise. So let's see where we're at. I have it set up in the vise. I torqued the cap down with the bearing. And we're going to go right in between with the gauge. And we're going to see where our clearances are on our... So we're going to bring it. We are... Oh, right. Go straight on with it, bud. So what do you see there? As it levels off, right?
Like 4,
there.
3.
Right there, right? So we're going to go right
That's
on. Right
2.
there.
2.
2?
Yeah, it's
So that'd be 2 thousandths. That's exactly what we want.
exactly 2 thousandths.
Yep. 2 thousandths.
Right on the mark.
Perfect. So because we have a new rod and we have new crank, obviously they're precise because it's newer technology. These are forged rods, and then it's a hyper-eutectic piston. It's a good little kit that they sell. Yeah, the only drawback now is the tunnel, the mains was line bored, so it opened it up a little. So it caused a little bit more clearance than I want. So I'm going to call the machine shop. He's going to probably tell me the same thing. Go with a 1 thousandths oversized bearing is what they consider it, a thicker bearing. So it takes up the difference. So not a big deal. I can order those. We'll get those on order. And as soon as I have them, we'll start throwing it back together. I also realize I don't have a rear main seal. I can't put the crank in without a rear main seal. It's a 2-piece rear main seal motor. That's how these work. So that's on the rear end, the rear cap of number 5. So I appreciate everybody hanging with us. We kind of just spec'd out the bearings, checking all our bearing clearances. This is how I was taught. And I appreciate everybody following, watching, subscribing, comments. We love comments. So keep doing what you're doing. And make sure you hit the notifications too.
No, I gotta do it.
Oh, Ricky wants to do it. Okay, sorry.
So make sure to like and subscribe and turn on your notifications. Ding dong. And make sure to comment.
It's very impressive.
And make sure
To what?
this is for my college funds.
Okay, yeah, enough of that. So basically we are...
Not really.
Yeah, okay. So we're done with this video. I can't go any further, but I wanted to get a video out there for you guys. So now you got a chance to see how we spec out a motor and how you have to check it. This is why building a motor is not easy and it's not simple. And like I said, I used to teach a class, so this is how we used to teach it. Now, are there guys out there that do it differently? Probably. Yes. But I don't care. It's just how I do it. So appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully with our new bearing set, we'll get better clearances because right now that's a little too big.
Stay tuned.
So stay tuned.
And make sure to like.
All right, we already told them. Enough of that. Yeah, enough of that.